Hey there, this is Jen T. Grace, founder of Publisher Purpose, and I am here for the first author launch interview of 2025 with Michelle. How are you, Michelle?
Hi, Jen. I'm really good, thank you.
Oh, I love that January 17th, at least the time that we're recording this, and it's the first book of the new year. So how exciting and how timely for a book like this to be coming out in January.
Yes, it is. Basically, it's focusing on health, and everybody is on the health wagon in January after all of the indulgences of the festive season, myself included, by the way.
Yes, myself included too. So let's just start off with kind of just having you share a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I am a resident of a little tiny island called the Isle of Man. It's 33 miles long by 13 miles wide. It's very small. So 85,000 people live here, but we're very green. We have a very green culture here. I grew up on a small holding in the countryside. It's the north of the island. It's called Mackle. It's very, very beautiful, very coastal. And I was very fortunate, really, because I grew up in the 70s, and at that time we didn't really have supermarkets or as we have them today. So all of our food was pretty much homegrown. We had plots of land, and we had an orchard. So we had fruit trees, we had berries, we had all of our vegetables as well, salad items. And my grandparents also did have some livestock. And it was because of this really that I learned about, food and nutrition from the ground up. I also decided very early on that I was not going to eat any meat because I was friends with our animals and I could correlate eating them with also playing with them. So that really set me off on my plant-based journey at a very, very young age. Yeah.
I feel like that's interesting because I think a lot of times people stumble upon a plant-based diet for any number of reasons. So it's interesting that this is just kind of, for the most part, kind of all you've known. Like this really is just your way of life and your diet and lifestyle, which I think it probably makes it easier for you to maintain because you don't have that
Yes.
comparison that people probably struggle with, but then also really makes you a solid expert because you practice what you preach.
1,000%. I grew up with it. I grew up with that knowledge. I did start to eat meat in my 20s. It was after the birth of my daughter. And at that time, veganism was just something that was very, it was very niche, and you were a weirdo, basically, if you were a plant muncher. And I was constantly being told at that time, no, you're doing, it's not right for you. You need to eat meat. You need to have protein in your diet, this, that, and the other. And I did start eating meat for a short time. I didn't like it. But there also wasn't the same amount of information about a plant-based diet. There is actually also, I need to point out, there is a big difference between plant-based diet and veganism. Veganism is an animal rights movement, which does include food, but plant-based diet and lifestyle is very much focused on your diet and on nutrition and on making sure that you get the right nutrients in your body. Veganism has taken a huge social media push since around about 2017. I noticed it coming into the forefront. But there is a lot of vegan food on the market now, but it's very highly processed and it's still not nutritionally dense. So it's still not good for you. It helps animals, but it doesn't help you. So I always like to make that distinction between the two things. But yeah, very much so. It's always been a big part of my life. And I do appreciate that I haven't found it as difficult to switch to plant-based as someone who would eat a standard diet, which includes obviously your dairy and your meat and your fish and things. Yes, it's a big change to make, which is why I wrote the book, because I wanted to show people that actually when you've got the right tools at hand, it's easier than you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was going to be my next question to you, is kind of why a book? Because you are already showing up in the world in so many different ways in which you are helping people around their plant-based eating. And so to me, it seems like a book is a natural progression, but I know that there's like deeper reasons why you wanted to put this in a book. So do you want to kind of share that journey and evolution with us?
Yeah, absolutely. The book really started on the back of me doing cook and eat workshops. So I was hosting in-person cook and eat workshops where I was bringing all the ingredients to the table, taking a room and turning it into a makeshift kitchen, and then my guests would cook along with me, and I was really showing them how to create dishes and sauces and things like that out of everyday pantry items and fresh vegetables and fruits and things. I mean, that was great, but it wasn't giving me a great reach. It was very hard work. And during that time, my dad actually got very ill. Well, he had been ill on and off for years. I'd always known that he had suffered with diabetes, and he had a massive heart attack where he needed a triple heart bypass. And then the cancer came in as well. So it was just one thing after another over the years. But his diet was very heavily a standard diet. So it was very meat-based, dairy-based, lots of cheese in his diet, dairy milks and butters and creams. It was really all of those things that he was being advised to eat that were actually creating the illnesses in his body. It was just a vicious cycle for him, really. And then when the cancer diagnosis came in, really from that point on, it was just a downhill battle for him. And he spent the last year of his life basically in hospital, and he passed away, sadly, in his 70s, which is just far too young. And I had many conversations with the medical staff at that time, and they did agree, but there was nothing that they could do. Their hands were tied. They weren't part of the process in what does a hospital feed its patients. The menus are what they are, the budgets are what they are. And they're still very heavily set, even now, on just giving people the standard food that's putting them there in the first place. So during that time, I was just looking at my dad, and his demise and the horror that he was going through, because it's painful. Cancer is painful. Heart attacks are painful. And so is diabetes. It's not a nice thing to witness. It's not a nice thing for a human to go through. And I just vowed to myself then that with the knowledge that I had and the passion that I have for this, that I was going to get the word out there and just let people know that you can be in control of what you eat. You can be in control of certain diseases that will impact you if you don't make those changes. And that really was the catalyst for me writing the book. It's going to give me a bigger reach than trying to just do in-person cook and eat workshops as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And can we talk about the structure of the workbook of the book itself to kind of just explain to a reader? Because I feel like there's definitely, and what I want to go back to is your acknowledgement of the differences between veganism and a plant-based diet, because I think that that's a really good grounding point for people, because if someone is really looking to create a healthier lifestyle, veganism isn't inherently the way to do it. Whereas we're talking about plant-based is kind of that natural path to go towards. So with your book, it's not just hey, here's how to eat plant-based. It's not just a cookbook. It is this kind of beautiful blend of both. So can you kind of share what your vision was when you started to assemble this?
Initially, the book was never going to be including any recipes at all. The recipes came later after I'd written the first half of the book. So the first half of the book is really centered around how to eat plant-based. It is a guide on how to change from your standard diet and transition over to a more plant-based diet. And it actually started with this, and if you can see that, this little heart. It's my food heart. So this is my blueprint, and this is how your daily plate needs to be constructed to include as much nutrition through the different types of food that you include in your diet. So we start with 50% of your plate needs to be raw salad, and then you follow that up with this. The rest of the 50% comes from non-starch, starchy foods, your fruits, your berries, and then healthy fats and that kind of thing. So that was the first thing that happened, and I then created the book from that. So the book really goes deep dives into the food heart and just explains how to get that into your daily plate every single day. And I've come up with 3 areas that we work on. And one of those areas is your mindset change. You need to change your mindset on how you look at food, how you view it. You need to then look at your kitchen setup, and then your time management as well. Time management is also a big thing because a lot of people are just so busy juggling work, family, social commitments, children, appointments, trying to, go to the gym and keep fit themselves. It's tough to try and take something as big as changing your diet in and finding the time to do that. And also there's the financial side of that. People don't want to go out and buy food that they don't know what to do with and end up with a lot of waste, So I'm trying to cover all of those things and help you see that, okay, just change how you diarize your day by in small increments. Change your mindset, and then we look at the kitchen. That's the smallest change. You've probably got everything you need pretty much in your kitchen already anyway, but it's just, it's good to go over that.
Mm-hmm. When you're working with people, do you ever have the resistance hurdle for someone that they're like, well, I have all of this food in my pantry. I have all of this food in my freezer. I have all do you ever have that kind of be like a resistance point? Because I feel like changing the mindset, yes, of course, that has to be like, you have to be willing and want to do this. But when you were saying, like next is like really looking at the kitchen, do you find that people are feeling like, oh, I don't want to be wasteful? And that is like almost like an excuse that delays them from taking action, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would not recommend wasting any of your food. So eat it, because really to transition to a plant-based diet or a more plant-based diet, I say do it in small increments, do it in baby steps. If you try and go into something and throw yourself into it 100%, so one day you're eating all of your normal things, the next day you're completely plant-based, that's tough. That's going to be tough on your body. And it's probably going to have you fall off that wagon very, very quickly. So I would say start with 1 day a week. And then you're not going to be feeling like you're wasting all the food that you've already got in your pantry or your fridge or your freezer. Use that up and just start increment in small bite-sized pieces. Introduce new foods, introduce new ingredients, introduce new dry store. Do it bit by bit. Don't do it all at once.
Yeah,
your body is going to go through a lot of changes when you change to a more plant-based diet, because generally on a standard diet, we don't have enough fiber. And with a plant-based diet, you're introducing a lot of fiber in, and that is going to create a real big party in your gut. And people find that they do get gaseous, they get bloated, they might get stomach cramps, they can have problems going to the toilet as well. So by doing it in smaller increments, you're introducing that into your body, and your body's better able to cope with it. It can be really uncomfortable. So
yeah. And that also feels more accessible rather than saying I'm going from this very carnivorous diet to all of a sudden I'm just going to like that whole kind of doing anything to an extreme like that. Of course it would disrupt our system. So I love that that's the advice of like, just start with a day a week. Can someone also just say, all right, I'm just going to start to remove cheese, or I'm going to start to remove dairy, and just slowly work their way from a higher, like kind of like an ingredient level as well in their day to day?
Yeah, 1,000%, because you have to do it in a way that works for you, that you can manage it. Only you know personally what your day-to-day is, what your time restraints are, what your financial restraints are, and also what your kitchen abilities are as well. Not everyone likes to cook, So you have to take all of those into account and do it in a way that works best for you.
I love
For
that.
sure.
Yeah, I love that. And so can we shift a little bit and talk about, because you do a lot of corporate well-being work. And so I kind of want to talk about both the corporate well-being side, but then also kind of that individual side as well. Because like what we're talking about now is even just helping people identify the right plan that's going to work for them. So whether it's starting with the day of the week, whether you're reducing ingredients, whether you're doing both, whatever the case may be, there's a customization aspect to this, right? So they'll have your book, which really goes into the why and helping you shift your mindset. And then also has like all these amazing recipes that they can try and explore. So there's something beautiful about that. But then also you are available for people to hire you both on the corporate side and individual side to actually help them implement these things. So can we share, like kind of just talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the corporate wellness side, It's great that this has come in, actually, and I really feel it's on the back of the COVID years when we were all locked down and everything changed. At that point, mental health became a real, focus for people, and it started to become recognised. Food and mental health are very much interlinked with each other as well. And I know myself from working in corporate, because my previous life has always been in finance. I work as a client accountant. So I have been very much that person who is desk bound, and I can sit there for 8 hours solid without moving, which is really not good for you. And then, the food that comes into the office, the cakes, the pasties, this, that, and the other, sausage perhaps and stuff on a Friday has been quite a popular thing for many years. You can eat very, very unhealthily and not even realise it because you're just picking, during your day. But people are now actually kind of realising that this is not a good environment to be working in, and the directors and owners of companies are really focusing on mental well-being and also food and exercise. So this is where I come in with the food, and how can we, in a busy day, in a corporate setting, how can we embrace a healthier way of eating and moving? So I do host events for corporates like banks and big offices where there's quite a number of people where we can all be in one room, and we can host a half day or a full day of corporate wellness. It's great to see this being embraced, because like I say, I know from my own time working in corporate that it can be very difficult to eat well. You've just got so many other things going on and meetings happening, and even the platters that come in for meetings, I've noticed that as well, they're usually very unhealthy, and they focus heavily on sandwiches and cheese and things like that, rather than looking at fruits and veg and how we're going to have, because a lot of people suffer with the afternoon slump as well, the 3 p.m. slump, where your body's been digesting and you just get that moment of tiredness and feeling sluggish, and your brain doesn't feel like it's working properly, and you've got the fog, and when we're eating better, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. It has been so many years since I've worked in an office environment, and I worked for like a company that had like maybe 100 employees. And it was over 15 years ago at this point. And I forgot how much harder it would be for someone working in a corporate environment to make changes when it's always someone's birthday, there's a potluck, there's all the things that you were just talking about, or there was an executive meeting and now the tray of food is just sitting in the kitchen because no one wants it to go to waste. So yeah, it has been a long time since I've even thought about how much harder it probably is for folks working in those environments to really make a lifestyle change like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And their choices, if they do nip out and go and pick something up from, town or whatever, the choices just are often not there either. People are so time constrained at the moment as well, that they're just eating on the go in between meetings, in between, commitments. So it's difficult. And it's so much easier just to reach out for whatever's going around the office, like you say, particularly on the birthdays and like little events and things that happen as well. I know that like some companies are now introducing like smoothie Mondays and things like that, where they're being offered a smoothie on a Monday for their 11s instead of, cakes and things like that, which is great to see. So,
that's right. I feel like that's a great way. And so now say you come into someone's corporate environment and then they're like, wow, I love what Michelle had to say. I bought this book. This is incredible. But say someone wants to kind of go further and really have you individualize and help kind of custom something with them, either kind of individual or in the kind of like a small group or some kind of self-paced program. What are those opportunities look like for someone who really wants to actually make this year be the year that they're going to make this change and have it stick?
I am actually calling this year the year of the self, and it's self with 2 F's. So this is all about looking at a program that I am just in the process of putting together now, which is, it can be used in a corporate setting, but it is more geared towards individuals because it's something that I'm working on myself as well. So we're focusing on getting quality sleep, emotional well-being, love, which comes from in the form of community, social interactions, family. That can take a bit of a hit when you're busy all the time as well. And then, of course, we're going to focus on food and fitness. All of those 5 things are really important. So if you are an individual looking to try and change your life up and focus more on your own self this year in 2025 and going forward, this is going to be a great program for you. Everybody is different. We are all individuals and we all have different commitments, we all have different lifestyles, and we might also have different health issues as well. So it's not a one size fits all. If anybody does want to talk to me on a one-to-one basis, then they can contact me on my website and we can arrange a Zoom chat or a WhatsApp, FaceTime, whatever, just to sit and have a half-hour chat about what their needs are, where they're at, and how I can help them going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. You know, I was on a vegetarian diet for many years, and then somehow started eating meat again. And as of late, I'm like, I just don't want to be eating meat anymore. And so, or at least start to kind of like reduce it. So I love, this is the best part of my job. Like there's so many reasons why I feel like I love what I do, but I feel like this is one of those great examples is like, I have a personal need that I want to fill. And there's an author that I've had the joy and pleasure of working with and a book that I can actually follow for myself. So I'm looking forward to implementing some of the things from your book as well, just from a personal standpoint.
That is fantastic. And I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you. It would be great to know how you get on as well. Did it work for you? Is the information in the book, is it enough? Is it easy to implement as well? I'd really like to know what the results are. So that's really exciting. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's also kind of a call to action for those who are watching, that if you do, really focus on yourself this year and decide, yes, I want to give plant-based eating a go. And even if it turns out that they only implement part of it, it's still a little bit healthier than it was before. But I think reaching out to you is a fantastic kind of call to action to say, yes, please reach out to Michelle. Let her know, did it work, how it's going, any kind of any feedback, because then that just makes any other iterations of how you're showing up in the world or this book shows up in the world makes it better down the road. So I think that is a wonderful, wonderful thing for people to do.
Absolutely. It's always good to get feedback because there will be further additions. And there's obviously courses that I'm putting together as well. So any information that I get that can be more helpful to people is just like, it's gold. Because it's all about, being as effective as I possibly can and helping people in the best possible ways that I can. So if someone has got some feedback for me that can help me improve on the book that I've already written and going forward for any courses that I set up, for the events that I host, and amazing, please do get in touch and let me know. Like you say, there is actually within the book, there is a QR code that you can just scan. It takes you straight through to the website. It's called I'm Not a Rabbit, which is an app that I'm looking at building for the future. So you can scan that QR code, it'll take you straight through to it, and then you just literally just put your name and email address in and I get back in touch with you. So it's really that simple. You don't even have to go and look for my website.
Oh, that's awesome. I love a good app, so I'll be curious to hear when that comes out. I just discovered the Yuka app. I think that's how it's said. And it allows you to scan barcodes, and it gives you a breakdown of the additives that are in the food, like basically the pros and cons, like if there's too much sodium or sodium seems to be the thing that comes, or too much sodium, too much sugar, but also shows like what chemicals are in the foods. And it gives you kind of like a scale to say, this food is bad, and here's the 15 reasons why. It includes red dye number 3, or whichever one was most recently kind of put on like a banned list. So I am loving that. I've been using that for a while. It's just such a cool tool.
Is so good to hear. I'm going to have a look for that app myself. I think that's brilliant. I know I read something. I'm subscribed to someone called the Produce Report, and they have all this information about food and nutrition. And I know that there is a company in the USA who have finally managed to get on the nutrition label, on the the back of food, rather than just putting all of the, your carbs, your fat, your sugar, your salt, this, that, and the other. They're actually putting your nutrition on it. So what vitamins and protein and fiber and all that is on it, which I think is much more helpful information to us. So that's really good to hear about that as well. Those two things hand in hand, just game changers, I think. Because people really, that's the whole thing about plant-based eating and the way I look at it. And when I'm writing my recipes, I don't put down those statistics, the normal nutrition, which is how much fat is in it, how many calories, this, that, and the other. Because if you're looking at your food and you're counting calories and fat content and that thing, you're not eating in the right way. You really want to be looking at food and saying, right, okay, what nutrition can I put on my plate? What protein, what fiber can I put on my plate? Look at it in a different way. So an app like that is just, that's really going to help people kind of look at food in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's what has to happen, because I think we've all been pre-programmed to look at our diets from a caloric standpoint alone. And obviously there are millions of reasons why that is not the best approach.
It's not. It's very restrictive as well. So when you're trying to change your diet, or you're trying to lose weight even, and you're counting calories, you end up restricting yourself, and you end up really hungry, and you're not really fulfilling your body's needs. So I always recommend, don't count calories. Don't do that. Just count your nutrients. Check out the little food heart. It's in the book as well. That helps much. It's a great visual aid, instant.
I remember in one of our first conversations, you showed me the food heart, and I was like, oh, such an easy way to think about it. So yes, and that is very prominently centered in the book as well for people to be able to use.
It is also on the flip side of that as well. There's also the I called it the cheat food heart. I originally called it an anti-food heart, but I got told off for that so many times I had to change the name. So the cheat food heart is the yellow heart, and it's basically all the things you really need to minimize, because we work on this kind of like 80-20 basis. 80% good food, and then 20% just minimize your processed, your ultra processed, and all of the more sort of calorific foods.
Yeah, to me it seems like it's one of those things that if you can just make one better decision a day, you will eventually make a lot of better decisions. So it's just a matter of kind of like slow and steady versus being extreme. Because I feel like that's why people like really struggle with both fitness and diet, is because of the kind of like throwing yourself into this extreme environment and then realizing, wow, that wasn't sustainable.
Absolutely. And that's why we all fall off the wagon. If we go, 100% in, within a couple of weeks, well, like on the fitness as well, 100% in, you're probably going to end up getting an injury and then being out for another 6 weeks. So it kind of doesn't pay, really. It's the same with the diet as well. So absolutely, 1,000%. Do it at your own pace. And there's no time limit on it. There's no, you have to have it done by this time. You have to change. It's not. It's like, do it to suit yourself. And make it fun and enjoyable, because food is fun. Food is sexy, It's a very sociable thing as well. And what I find is that people are so curious about plant-based diet. I'm always being asked, what do you eat? Tell me about it. It's so interesting. So once you get onto that little kind of bandwagon yourself, you find that people are really interested in what you're doing. And I think you get really kind of into it yourself as well. It becomes a bit of an obsession.
Yeah. And I think that's what I love about your approach, is that it's just so holistic, in the sense that it's like, just do it at your own pace. It's not like you're saying you have to join me in this 14-day program that's going to help you lose this amount. Like, it's none of what we see traditionally out there in terms of how to be healthier. And I love that you're just like, do it as you please, and take what works, leave what doesn't work. And I think that is just such a freeing standpoint for someone who really just wants to do this well. So I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything that I have not asked you that I should have asked you, or anything else that we want to bring up before we kind of wrap up here?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything that was I had on my mind to say as well. So thank you very much. And I just want to say thank you to you and Alexander, who's put up with me day in, day out for quite a long time while we were getting the book published. I just want to thank you so much to you guys for making the process so much easier for me, because it's quite it's a big thing to go from writing a book is one thing and then going through the publishing process. You know, it's big. It's not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure. And I feel that any person who's gone through that process is very passionate about their book. That's for sure. And it's just been an absolute joy to work with you guys. I think I did mention to you at one point as well that there was a bit of a void from the book actually being published and being in the physical when I first received it, because Alexandra and I had you know, communication with each other pretty much every day for months. And then suddenly it was very quiet and still. And it was almost like the end of a relationship. It was like a breakup, and I didn't quite know what to do with myself. And I was like really missing him, thinking, I should get in touch with him. What's going on? But yeah, it's been an amazing process. Kind of looking forward to going through it again with the next book.
Yeah. I love that. And and when you had said that, when that kind of dip happened, it did kind of prompt us to have a conversation internally of like, wow, how can we make sure that someone doesn't feel that dip? Because there's like a specific point in the process where that happens, where it is so much back and forth, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we have everything we need and now we just have to wait. So it's almost like sitting in silence in that wait, and we're like, okay, how can we make sure that no one else kind of has that that feeling too? Because it is a really intense process, as you now know. And what's beautiful is that now you can just start to show up to our monthly calls as, I did this. The book is out now. I can actually just see and talk to other authors and see what now I want to do with it. And I think that, to me, that's really one of the exciting parts of the process, is that now it's out and now you can start to really creatively think, because you're not stuck in the weeds of how stressful the process itself is.
That's absolutely right as well. There is just that period of kind of no man's land where there's just nothing happening, and your mind is so focused, or has been so focused, on this whole publishing process. That transition between that and where we are now is a little strange, but I'm really excited about what's happening next. I've had a few weeks just to, you know, bring my mind back around to, right, okay, now we're just moving forward. Now we're going to start getting the book out there. I can now start hosting events again, and I can get onto all of these great events that you guys host as well, which I've got the first one, I think, is the 30th I've booked onto. So I'm really excited for that. I can't wait, because I haven't been able to do any of these up until now. So it's going to be good to meet other authors and find out, you know, where they are in their journey, what they did next, and what's worked for them. So yeah, it's really exciting. The journey doesn't end just because the book is published, that's for sure.
It does not. Just when the journey begins, that's what happens. You know, it goes from it's like 3 legs of a race, is what I always say. Like, you have the writing, that's one race, then you have the publishing, another race, and then you have the actual marketing and talking about it in the community and the promoting of it, which is a race that just actually doesn't have a finish line. So that is just like a whole new way of being and way of showing up in the world, is that you have this thing. It's like having a child. Like, it's not going anywhere.
Absolutely, it is. And the publishing of the book is the birthing. It's the pregnancy and the birth. It is typically about 9 months long, and I understand now completely why it's called birthing a book. I really do. I get it. But yeah, I'm really excited for this next stage going forward. I really am. And it's great that we, like you said earlier at the beginning of this, that it's the new year, new start, fresh mindset, and let's see what 2025 has in store.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. And for anyone who is watching this either, you know, live or at a later date, Michelle's website is along the bottom of the screen. It's benourish.im. You can go check her out, contact her, all of those great things. Her book is available wherever you would like to purchase your book. You can also check out, if you want links specifically to find those locations, you can get it on the PYP website as well. And Michelle, thank you so much. You have been a joy to work with. And now I just look forward to working with you in a different capacity, which is exciting. So thank you so much for everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you too. Thank you so much. And I'm just looking forward to whatever happens next, Jen. Thank you.
You bet.